Without a doubt, it is good to be Trump's friend right now. It can get you an infomercial for your car company on the White House lawn, or it can get your foreign bribery indictment completely dropped. But God help you if you're on Trump's enemies list. And Trump has found the perfect way to find out if someone should be on that enemies list. Let's talk about Trump's executive orders targeting ex-staffers and maybe worst of all, law firms who dared defend any perceived enemies of Donald Trump, and why 62% of the country could technically be on that enemies list. It got a bit lost in all the tariff madness of the last week or two, but Trump signed executive orders last week targeting two specific ex-Trump administration staffers. The first was Miles Taylor. Miles was the chief of staff at the Department of Homeland Security and authored the anonymous "I am part of the resistance inside the Trump administration" op-ed at New York Times in 2018. He then later revealed himself as that anonymous author after exiting the Trump administration and writing a book. So the executive order regarding Miles states that he illegally published classified conversations to sell his book without specifying the classified information revealed, which is pretty rich coming from the administration who just checking my notes here. Just revealed classified conversations in Signalgate. So yeah, that's fun. That executive order also said, and this is via the New York Times, this conduct could properly be characterized as treasonous and as possibly violating the Espionage Act. In a statement, Mr. Taylor said the executive order punishing him has been expected. Dissent isn't unlawful, Mr. Taylor said on social media. It certainly isn't treasonous. America is headed down a dark path. Never has a man so inelegantly proven another man's point. I do want to put this out here. In the case of Miles Taylor, I feel like I should point out that I don't think he was in the right for anonymously trying to thwart Trump during his first term. I'm at least torn on this issue. I think that in general, if we elect a president and his cabinet and staff, they should serve the pleasure of that president. If he asks you to do something illegal or something you disagree with, I think you should resign or do it. I had this same problem with Biden's anonymous staffers protesting, I think it was his Israel policies. And sure, you can try to sell your case to the president behind closed doors, but if he doesn't go along with it, you can quit or go along with those decisions. That's sort of my opinion. But the executive order goes on to instruct the attorney general and any other relevant department heads to suspend any active security clearances held by Miles Taylor, in addition to individuals at entities associated with Taylor, including the University of Pennsylvania, pending a review of whether such clearances are consistent with the national interest. You can see the goal here, right? We're not just investigating this guy we don't like. We're going to check out any of his known associations so that they might have to cut ties with him or risk being punished too. Then there's Chris Krebs. Krebs was the head of CISA, the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, during Trump's first administration. He was one of Trump's best hires in his first term, in my opinion. He's a really smart guy, great at cybersecurity stuff, had a great blog I always like to read. But all you need to know from the executive order is this line. Krebs, through CISA, falsely and baselessly denied that the 2020 election was rigged and stolen, including by inappropriately and categorically dismissing widespread election malfeasance and serious vulnerabilities with voting machines. Krebs had said publicly that there was no evidence the election was stolen in 2020. And this is the guy that's in charge of the cybersecurity of the United States, right? He said the voting machines were not hacked. That just pisses Trump off. And he's using the executive branch to do exactly what he and Republicans accused the Biden administration of doing. The sort of the Stalin-esque show me the man and I'll show you the crime. And let me be totally transparent here. I think that's exactly what happened in the New York case brought by Alvin Bragg against Trump. It was plainly political in nature, and I've said as much consistently. I've always defended Trump in that situation. But now Trump is doing the same thing, but instead of going after big fish like Joe Biden or Liz Cheney, he's going after people you've probably never heard of. The point here is to ruin anyone's reputation and career if they dare do something like, let's just check this real quick. Correctly say that the 2020 election was not stolen. But wait, there's more. There's Trump's executive orders attacking law firms who sued Fox News on behalf of Dominion voting machines. He's also removed security clearances from law firms who helped the FBI during its January 6th investigations. Do you see a pattern here? All of these are just executive orders right now, but they all have the same language directing the attorney general and other agencies to comb through these individuals' histories, while they were working for the government and try to find, inappropriate actions or crimes that happened possibly. So do you think the sycophants Trump has surrounded himself with in these agencies in his second term aren't going to say how high when he asks them to jump and go find bad information on these people? I think they're going to love doing this. And in case you've forgotten, because it's been quite the jam-packed news cycle for the first 3 months of the Trump administration, part 2, on day 1, he removed Secret Service security detail from John Bolton and Brian Hook, among others. Both of those specific people had credible threats against them, assassination threats against them by Iran after their successful assassination of Iranian Revolutionary Guard Quds Force Commander Soleimani during Trump's first administration. So these guys gave Trump the opportunity to take out an Iranian commander in charge of terrorism proxies, and Trump wisely did so. It was a win for the Trump administration. I totally agree. It was a great move. In return, Iran attempted to hire assassins to take out Bolton and others, and Trump's thank you to him for giving him that win in his first administration is, we're going to remove your protection. This is all because Bolton has been an outspoken critic of Trump since the end of that first administration. This is no longer Trump just bombastically insulting people that he perceives as his personal enemies in front of a microphone and camera. I will even admit that, his insult nickname game in 2015 was quite strong. I welcome your comments highlighting the best, but your answer is wrong if it's not Pocahontas. Actually, that was later than 2015, but still. This is him attempting to use the full power of the executive branch to punish dissenters. And it's interesting to me that unless you're a political junkie like myself, you probably have never heard any of these names before. It's not exactly the list of people he talked about leading up to this second inauguration. He talked a lot about Liz Cheney's and General Mark Milley's and Democrats like the Bidens and Adam Schiff. But I don't remember him spending a lot of time harping on Chris Krebs on the election trail last year. And that's actually concerning to me because, and this is me speculating, to be totally clear, we all know that Trump wants retribution, right? He said this. He said that was his whole campaign in the second administration was going to be about retribution for these perceived enemies. And most of us took it as he's talking about the left or progressives. But what we figured out is this is really about those who have turned against him personally. It's as if someone has convinced him the smart way to do this and test the waters is with going after small fish, like try to ruin those people's lives and see if you get any pushback from Americans or the courts. And if you don't, maybe that's an indication that Americans have truly been boiled like the frog in the pot that you slowly turn the heat up on, which is an analogy I cannot take credit for because it's literally the title, Boiling Frogs, of Nick Cottagio's newsletter at the Dispatch, where he wrote, starting with Krebs and Taylor is Trump's way of signaling that no one is too insignificant to be a target. He hasn't forgotten or forgiven those who've crossed him, including those who did so in the increasingly distant past. If you caused the president any troubles, you too should sleep less soundly at night, even if you've caused him considerably less than others have. So what constitutes as crossing him? I think that Trump has a super simple litmus test for this. It is your answer to the question, was the 2020 election stolen? 62% of Americans, when polled, believe the answer to that question is no. But this becomes a really easy test for Trump to know if you're sufficiently loyal or not. The simple yes or no nature of it has been on job application forms for the White House. It's been in Senate confirmation hearings. It's asked of Trump's people continuously by reporters and podcasters and constituents. And it's such a ridiculous lie with no evidence backing it up that those in Trump's orbit will continue getting the question and continuing being required to answer it ridiculously. Because it's not enough to be loyal to Trump. You have to go all in on every lie. And this is a perfect litmus test for him. Because Trump knows anything he says over and over and over again, despite it being a lie, will eventually be believed by a portion of this country. So if he has everyone else around him spewing the same lie, I'd imagine that only accelerates the acceptance of it by Americans. And it has, because in December of 2021, 69% of Americans thought that Biden had won the election fair and square, and that's now down to 62%. He and MAGA have slowly convinced 7% of the country without evidence that the election was stolen from them. Now, I'm still a little bit encouraged because there's still 62% of us that have a brain in our head to understand that you've given us no evidence that this has happened, but that number is shrinking. And this is why none of his cabinet nominees could answer the question, did Biden win the 2020 election, with a straight face? They wouldn't answer the question. They would just say, Joe Biden was the president. That was the answer over and over again. They would never say that he won. They would just say that he was the president. I do believe this is Trump. He wants retribution. He likes punishing his enemies. But someone inside the administration is taking his worst instincts and pushing them toward them instead of away from them and making him better at implementing them. And of course, some of these are meaningless executive orders right now. Maybe nothing will come of them and I'm freaking out for no reason. That could absolutely be the case. But the absolute shattering of norms here seems pretty worth pointing out to me, even at this early stage. Traditionally, despite the president being the head of the executive branch and technically in charge of everything that goes on at the Department of Justice, they've not interfered with investigations or directed investigations. It's one of those silly things the authors of the Constitution didn't dream would end up being a problem, because surely Congress would impeach a president who crossed that line. Not that we even had a Department of Justice at the time, but they certainly knew he was in charge of the federal law enforcement and executive branch. So they just thought, Congress will surely impeach someone that tries to punish his enemies by telling the federal government to indict someone for something they didn't do. But as much foresight as those founding fathers had, I don't think they saw Congress abdicating their power to the executive branch. And they certainly did not have a solution for if Americans decided they wanted a king again. So now the president of the United States is singling out individuals for investigations by any and all agencies who might want to kiss his ass a little bit by making some ridiculously novel case against his enemies, much like Alvin Bragg did to Trump in New York. And this is only because in the case of Krebs, he told the truth about an election not being stolen. It's the same reason Liz Cheney and Bill Barr, Adam Kinzinger, Mike Pence, and all the other ones on his enemy list too. It all starts with the denial that the election was stolen in 2020. Now, probably that I love to try to offer solutions to problems, but I'm going to be honest, I don't see one here. He really seems to be getting away with this. This litmus test is working for him, and a sufficient number of Americans aren't concerned about it, and they're really not concerned about him sicking executive branch agencies on individuals he just doesn't like in sort of search of a crime. And Congress is certainly not going to rein him in on this. I just don't think the judicial branch is either, because I'm not a lawyer, but I can't seem to find anything that's specifically unconstitutional about he is the head of the executive branch. He can tell agencies in the executive branch what to do, I think. Probably. I could be wrong about that. Hop in the comments if you happen to be a constitutional lawyer. I'm happy to be convinced otherwise on that. So the only two options are impeachment or Congress throwing their weight around. That's it. And I don't think Trump is worried about either one of those. If you like principled conservative political content like this, please like and subscribe. It really does help me a lot. And you can stick it to the outrage and fear-mongering algorithm by sharing this or other videos with someone. Yeah, I really do appreciate it. I'll catch you next time.